Revelation 17. One of these 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and said to me, "Come, I will show you the punishment of the great prostitute who sits by many waters."
So I think this is the introduction of the harlot, the great prostitute. And I guess there's a lot of debate about what this represents. I think the prostitute represents the Jewish nation. They're the ones who rejected their own Messiah, the ones who loved other gods instead of the God that they were supposed to love, the ones who rejected their king, who had killed the prophets before him, and even killed their Messiah.
With her the kings of the earth committed adultery, and the inhabitants of the earth were intoxicated with the wine of her adulteries.
And I think that's just saying that the kingdoms, the earthly kingdoms, catered to the Jewish nation in many ways. And they still do today.
Then the angel carried me away in the spirit into a wilderness. There I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was covered with blasphemous names, and had 7 heads and 10 horns.
All right, now, this beast is the same beast that Daniel talks about and that we have been discussing in Revelation. The only difference here is it says that it's a scarlet beast, so it gives its color, I think, a maroon or blood type color. But it has 7 heads and 10 horns. That's the same beast that was talked about in Daniel and in previous chapters of Revelation. And this beast is most definitely the Roman Empire. So Jerusalem, or not Jerusalem, but the Jews are riding on the Roman Empire, the beast of the Roman Empire.
The woman was dressed in purple and scarlet and was glittering with gold, precious stones, and pearls.
An indication of the riches, the Jewish nation and her riches.
She held a golden cup in her hand, filled with abominable things and with the filth of her adulteries.
So this is after the Jews had killed Jesus, their Messiah, their king, who came to be their king in fulfillment of prophecy. They killed him, and they have been killing his followers, and Jesus is about to pour out his wrath on them for their rejection of Jesus. And so you can tell by the language that this cup in her hand is filled with abominable things and the filth of her adulteries. The Jewish nation is about to receive the wrath of God. It's imminent. This whole book talks about the imminent fulfillment.
Written on her forehead was a mystery: Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes, and of the abominations of the earth.
Okay, so who was the mother of the abominations of the earth? Certainly was the Jews. The Jews killed the Messiah. The Jews killed Jesus. That is the mother of all abominations. To kill the Son of God. It can't get worse than that. So who did it? The Jews. So the harlot is the Jews, the Jewish nation that rejected Jesus. Because some of the Jews didn't reject Jesus and they became Christians, and they would not be included. So it's not all Jews, it's just the Jews who rejected Jesus. Those who held to the Jewish nation and the Jewish customs, and when Jesus came to fulfill that and to institute a new covenant.
I saw that the woman was drunk with the blood of God's holy people.
And of course, the Jews killed many Christians. including Jesus, but many others. They were drunk with the blood of Christians.
The blood of those who bore testimony to Jesus.
And there's confirmation that we're talking about Christians. The Jews killed Christians, those who bore the testimony of Jesus.
When I saw her, I was greatly astonished. Then the angel said to me, "Why are you astonished? I will explain to you the mystery of the woman and of the beast she rides, which has the 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast which you saw once was, now is not, and yet will come up out of the abyss and go to its destruction."
Now, the beast being the Roman Empire, I really don't understand this verse. It's saying that it says it once was, but now is not, and will come up out of the abyss and then go to destruction. I don't really know how to explain how the Roman Empire did that. So if anybody has any assistance there, I'd like to see it.
The inhabitants of the earth whose names have not been written in the book of life from the creation of the world will be astonished when they see the beast, because it once was, now is not, and yet will come.
So those who are not saved, I guess would be a good way to summarize that. Those whose names have not been written in the book of life from the creation of the world, which, again, that points out predestination that a lot of people have a hard time accepting. But it says people's names were written in the book of life before creation. If your name is written in the book before creation, then that means it's predetermined. It can be changed. It was determined before you were born. Whether your name is in the book or not is not dependent on what you do, because your name was written in before creation.
This calls for a mind with wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 hills on which the woman sits. There are also 7 kings.
So I pointed out in one of the previous chapters how it was well known that Rome sat on 7 hills. And I forget which chapter I pointed that out, but you've probably already seen it if you're looking at these videos. But these 7 heads, it says you can either say that there are 7 hills or that there are 7 kings, both of which point to the Roman Empire. They're either the 7 hills, the Roman 7 hills, or the Roman 7 kings. Either way, it's Rome.
5 have fallen, 1 is, the other has not yet come.
Now, I've seen a lot of people seem to prefer to reject the idea that the 7 heads are 7 kings, and they want to say that there are 7 kingdoms going all the way back to Egypt and Assyria and Babylon, Medo-Persian, Greek, Roman, and then some future kingdom that's not identified anywhere in the Bible, that we're just supposed to figure out, I guess, with no evidence. But I reject that. I think it's talking about, as it says, 7 kings. And keep in mind, the angel is giving the interpretation right now. The angel says, "Let me explain it to you. The 7 hills, or the 7 heads, are either the 7 hills of Rome or the 7 kings. Either way, it's Rome." And he says, of these 5 kings, 5 have fallen, 1 is, and 1 is yet to come. So I would say, let me pull up the list. The 5 that have fallen are probably Julius Caesar, Augustus, Tiberius, Caligula, and Claudius. That's the first 5 Roman emperors. And the 6th one is Nero. And Nero, when you put his name in Hebrew, Caesar Nero, adds up to 666. He's the current king at the writing of the book of Revelation. He's the 6th king in the line of Roman Caesars. And he says that there's 1 yet to come. Now, right after Nero, there were 3 people that reigned for less than a year each, because they were fighting for dominance or whatever. And I think this may have something to do with the 10 horns. You got 7 heads, but you got 10 horns. So you got the 7 kings, the Caesars, that actually reigned for more than a year. But then you had 3 little guys, 3 guys that couldn't establish their kingdom, which would be Galba, Otho, and Vitellius. They reigned for a short while, and they were the 3 horns that were supplanted by Vespasian, who was actually the Roman Caesar at the time of the Jewish destruction of Jerusalem and the Jews and the Jewish temple in 70 AD. So I think that's your 7 kings. They skipped those 3 that were uprooted by Vespasian, and they reference between Julius Caesar to Nero, who is currently the king. Then you skip those 3 that didn't establish their reign for even a year, and then you have the 7th king, which is Vespasian, who was the king at the time of the destruction of Jerusalem.
But when he does come, he must remain for only a little while. The beast who once was, and now is not, is an 8th king. He belongs to the 7 and is going to his destruction.
Now, I don't understand this part. And I may not understand any of it, but at least some of it makes sense to me. The beast who once was, now the beast I associate with the Roman Empire. And earlier it said something about the beast. There it is, verse 8. The beast which you saw once was, now is not, and yet will come up out of the abyss. Now we have the same thing. The beast who once was and now is not is an 8th king. But he belongs to the 7. So I just don't know what to say about that. So anything you can say to help me, I would appreciate it.
The 10 horns you saw are 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom, but who for 1 hour will receive authority as kings along with the beast.
Now that either could be what I just said, where it's the same 10 kings from Julius Caesar to Vespasian, which includes Nero in the middle, or close to the end. Because there is so much overwhelming evidence that the whole book of Revelation is talking about things that were going to be completely fulfilled in the 1st century, shortly after the book was written and even delivered to Christians to read. So I think these horns are the same 10 from Julius Caesar to Vespasian, but maybe they're not. I don't know. I would lean toward yes, unless someone would give me some more evidence to change my mind.
They have one purpose, and will give their power and authority to the beast. They will wage war against the Lamb. But the Lamb will triumph over them because he is the Lord of lords and King of kings, and with him will be his called, chosen, and faithful followers.
All right, so I remembered another verse. I don't know if it's the last chapter or the one before. That talked about they went out to gather kings for the Battle of Armageddon, or the battle at Armageddon, or Mount Megiddo. And it's possible that these 10 horns in verse 12 are not the 10 successions of Caesars, but maybe they're kings of different countries or nations that joined in with the Roman Empire to destroy Christians and to wage war against Christians and the Lamb.
Then the angel said to me, "The waters you saw where the prostitute sits are peoples, multitudes, nations, and languages. The beast and the 10 horns you saw will hate the prostitute."
Look at that. So they seem like they're on the same team. They seem like the prostitute's riding the beast and they're on the same team. But now we're seeing that the beast and the 10 horns will hate the prostitute. So the Roman Empire hated the Jews, and that makes sense. The Jews tried to maintain their power under all oppression, no matter who it was, whether it was in Egypt or Babylon or Assyria. They would try to maintain their elite status with God, no matter what was going on. But here we see that the Roman Empire and the 10 horns, whether that's 10 Caesars or 10 kings from other places that were in subjection to the Roman Empire, they hate the Jews. The prostitute is the Jews who rejected Jesus.
They will bring her to ruin and leave her naked. They will eat her flesh and burn her with fire.
All right, so the Roman Empire is going to destroy the Jewish nation, and that's exactly what happened in 70 AD. They burned her and destroyed her, and the blood was running down the streets to even quench the fires of the buildings.
For God has put it into their hearts to accomplish his purpose by agreeing to hand over to the beast their royal authority until God's words are fulfilled.
You see how God uses corrupt and evil nations to accomplish his purposes, even against those who were once his chosen people. It says God put it in their hearts, so we can't neglect to see things like that. So people want to hold so tightly to the human free will and say people only do what they choose to do. You can either choose to do right or choose to do wrong under all circumstances, and God would never intervene in your own will or to change your mind or to put something in your mind. But the Bible teaches that he does. God put it in their hearts to accomplish his purpose, to destroy the Jews. God told the Romans, he put it in their hearts to destroy the Jews, and that's what they did. God used them, and he overpowered their will to accomplish his own will through them.
The woman you saw is the great city that rules over the kings of the earth.
All right, so at this time, the great city was absolutely, most certainly, Jerusalem. Jerusalem, for his audience especially. He's talking to previous Jews and Christians and people that understand the history of the world and who have faith in God. And the only city that God has ever shown favor to was Jerusalem. And it says here clearly that the woman you saw is the great city, Jerusalem, that rules over the kings of the earth. Now, I don't know how else you could see that or say that. So, the beast, throughout the book of Revelation and even in the book of Daniel, the beast is the Roman Empire. The harlot is Jerusalem, or more specifically, the Jews who rejected Jesus and persecuted Christians, which the focal point for that was Jerusalem. Even in the Roman Empire, the Jews from Jerusalem influenced the Roman Empire to kill Christians also. But it says here that the beast hated the prostitute. So the beast, or the Roman Empire, hated the Jews. And they got tired of being manipulated by the Jews. So they wiped them out in 70 AD, as was prophesied. And as we see in the complete fulfillment of God's wrath being poured out of the bowls, out of the 7 bowls, ending with the destruction of Jerusalem. So there is Revelation chapter 17.